Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're once again looking at the planned BR changes which are coming in October 2020. If I was going to hazard a guess, they'll probably come in the next week or so like they normally do, normally before the major updates, which normally happens at early November or late October. Something to also mention, as I did before, if you have any feedback on the topic, it's always best to leave it on the forums. Gaijin do listen to player feedback. It is definitely something to get involved, and even if you believe they don't listen to it, well, it's better to try and put some feedback in just in case they do. They have some very active community managers. A lot of them are incredibly good people, so make sure to leave your thoughts, make sure to give your opinions here so you can see a positive change in the game that you feel. Now, we already had a look at the aviation part of stuff, we had a look at ground vehicles. Now it's time for the fleet, and the reason why I wanted to leave the fleet for today is, first of all, I was feeling quite ill yesterday. I'm feeling a little bit better now, but still not 100%. And also the fact that there is actually quite a lot of changes here that I needed to process and try and work out, what I actually thought about them. So let's get started having a look at these changes for Naval, and we're going to focus on arcade because that's the game mode that I play. I don't play realistic. I think arcade is just a better game mode when it comes to Naval. It's a lot faster, and also at the same time you get reloadable torpedoes, so therefore you can use them more tactically instead of just hope for the best and throw them out there. And generally when it comes to the aiming system, it's a lot more kind. It's just a funner, faster game mode. That's why I think it's better. So when we have a look at the first change, the Clemsons, all the Clemsons, or at least the DD336, the 213 and the L45, they're all getting moved down to 3.3. This technically puts them in the BR of stuff like PT boats and battle boats. Even though at 3.7 they saw them a lot anyway, now it just makes it way more apparent. It is kind of crazy to me to think that destroyers can now see 2-3 machines, even with stuff like quantitative matchmaking existing. It seems just insane to me. I'm a person who has advocated in the past to have strict barriers between stuff like destroyers, cruisers, and also PT boats. I think this would help with balancing in general. I understand the queue time issue, but there is such a massive difference between a lot of the destroyers and stuff like PT boats. I think it is definitely something that is required. So to see the opposite of that is very odd, in my opinion. So also we have the Franz, which goes down. I think if we were going to make arguments for ones which could go down and would be fine to go down, the Franz would be part of that. It is definitely not on the same level as a lot of the other destroyers, and the British Clemson as well. It only has one main gun and technically two guns which can do a decent amount of damage and a few pieces of AA. I think personally those two could go down fine, but the other ones which do have a decent set of large caliber guns, I'm not exactly sure. That includes the Matsuki, that also includes the two American Clemsons. So I disagree with the changes to the Matsuki and the two US Clemsons, but I do agree with the British Clemson and the Franz just because they really struggle against stuff such as destroyers. And understand, when it comes to my idea of putting these hard gaps in, there is always going to be destroyers which get screwed by this, but I think for the overall health of the game it is something that will help, because it means that stuff such as 3.7, 4.0 and 4.3 destroyers cannot dominate, PT boats from 3.3, 3.7 and 4.0 and so on. I think playing the PT and battle boats of like 3.0, 3.3, 3.7, 4.0 are actually really fun. There's a lot of interesting mechanics between them. There's a little bit for everyone when it comes to them, and I feel like it's just really interesting to play. But then a destroyer comes in and ruins the party from about 5k away, and you can't really do anything about it unless you're in very specific machines, such as the new reward vehicle, the Freccia, which is pretty good at dealing with stuff like that. So yeah, it's a bit odd seeing these changes. I'm guessing they're trying to make the grind into destroyers a little bit easier for people, but the idea that these destroyers can now see 2-3 machines is really crazy to me. The Porter and the Somas are going up to 5.0, so now they're technically in cruiser BRs, or at least what used to be cruiser BRs. This isn't surprising. The Porter, I remember when it started at 4.3. That machine, I think that was a little bit of an oversight. That thing can continuously fire if you use fire, which fires one of the guns each, like over time. It can continuously fire until it runs out of ammunition. It's one of those machines that can just keep pumping out damage. And I've had many games in the Porter with easily over 10k damage, and it's just one of those which can tear apart PT boats, battle boats, destroyers, whatever it feels like because of its armaments. The Soma's not so much. It has a little bit less, but it can still do a ton of damage. As well, but now that it's at a higher BR, it's going to struggle a little bit more because it's going to face a lot more cruisers. And if it goes on those large maps, the large circular maps with the one big cap zone, I feel like these machines are just going to get absolutely annihilated. The Sumner stays at the same BR, which I think is a positive change, and also the Phelps does. They obviously have less power when it comes to their main armament overall. So I think these are two definitely of the stronger destroyers in the game, so it's not a surprise to see them go up. But at the same time, it's very much map dependent if they're useful or not. And as I said, on the smaller maps, they can be incredibly devastating to whatever is around the place. On the maps, as I said, which are just a circle cap zone, they become completely useless against stuff like destroyers, and you have, stuff like cruisers, and you have to rely on torpedoes to try and do the damage. If you are going to put up some destroyers, these are the ones that I would pick. I'd also pick some of the Japanese ones with their long lances, because they are the ones which can engage a lot of the cruisers at range. So we'll have to see what happens with them. Hopefully they don't just become cruiser food, but we'll have to see, I suppose. The Dardo and also the G-Class are also going down to 3.7. The G-Class, I think it's fair that it's going down. Its power level is very similar to something like the Matsuki, but the Matsuki is also going down to 3.3, so maybe it's slightly better than it. In my playing of it, I never felt like it was a very strong destroyer. I thought it was one which did get beaten up on 4.3s and 4.7s. So to see it go down, I think, is a positive change. The Dardo as well. The Dardo was a machine and is a machine which has an incredibly long reload for its guns. So therefore, it just takes time to be able to pump out damage. And by the time that you've done that, you get creamed once again by 4.3 or 4.7 destroyers. So putting it down, I think, is a positive move for those two. Hopefully it means that they'll be able to combat a lot of the other destroyers that have been moved down too. The Spokojny, or the PR-56, is going up. This is a surprise to me. I look at that machine and I don't see a massive power level of it, but maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. I know it has the really good 45s, which are pretty decent at range. I know for a fact it has, the fast-firing main armament, but it just doesn't seem like a machine to me that is taking over games, especially if it's going to face cruisers now at a decent click. So maybe there's just something I'm missing with that machine, but it seems odd that it's put at the 5.0 level with the likes of the Somas and the Porter. The Turbine is also going down to 3.3. The Turbine, if you're going to move down the Clemsons and the Matsuki, I suppose the Turbine does make sense to move down to 3.3. Once again, suffers like the Dardo when it comes to the long reload, and also, lack of crew and all of this stuff. So, yeah, it makes sense. I still disagree with the decision of pushing them down. The HMS Tiger is actually going down to 5.3 as well. That's probably due to the fact that a bunch of 5.7 cruisers got put in, which are just better than it when it comes to its capabilities. Stuff like the Eugen, stuff like the Hipper, stuff like the Graf Spee, even stuff like the Brooklyn and the Helena. Even though the Tiger has some really nice fast-firing guns, at the same time, it doesn't have the multi-role capabilities of those cruisers and doesn't have the overall firepower, especially if those turrets are targeted by main guns. So to see it go down is not really a surprise. I would be more surprised if it stayed at its BR to get beaten up. The Leipzig is also going down to 5.3, so hopefully it'll see a little bit more play. There is a chance with the machine that it'll see more play, so hopefully it will. If not, then, I suppose c'est la vie for it. So there's a lot of 5.3 cruisers which do suffer right now. Also 5.0 cruisers, because guess what? Fighting 5.7s in a 5.0 cruiser, not too fun. The Fairmile A ML100 is going down to 1.0, so it's not becoming a reserve vehicle like the Panzer of the ground vehicles, but it is going down to the lowest BR in the game. So that means that it will, help its matchmaking. It'll only be able to go from 1.0 to 2.0, so maybe it'll help it out a little bit. There's issues with a lot of those Fairmiles, speed mainly, and then also weaponry is not the best. So yeah, we'll see if this helps this. The G5 TKA 106, so this is the gift premium vehicle that the Soviets got, I believe, for the anniversary event last year. The TKA 106 has access to the rockets and also just the really good platform of the G5. Very fast, can run around the place, do a ton of damage, and it's just a very fun machine to use, and I'm not really surprised to see it go up in BR. The fact is it's fast. It is quite hard to hit sometimes, especially in arcade, and you can also just brap a lot of vehicles around the place to be able to do a ton of damage to them. The Sukhoi 1927 is going down to 1.3. Both of those machines, the little armored riverboats for Japan, should be 1.0 vehicles. They are slow, their guns don't do any damage, they are, in my opinion, some of the worst vehicles to use in arcade in the game. They are pretty much useless, and also at the same time, if you ever come up against rough water, or any type of water which isn't mild, your guns don't fire straight because your thing is so unbalanced, it just waddles all over the place. So for me, the Sukhoi going down is a positive move, but I do think both of those machines should be 1.0s. The Isle class is also going down to 1.7. Now, the Isle class is an interesting machine because it has a big donk gun on the front of it, but not a lot to really, back it up. And one of the problems with that is if, you miss the donk, then you just die, because they could just farm you for crew, and a lot of guns at lower tiers have a big, really fast fire rate, which will be able to pen you, and you just get set on fire a bunch, and you just, you start losing components, and because of the reload of the gun, sometimes you just, get screwed. At the same time, it's a huge target for planes, and in arcade, planes after the 3 to 5 to 10 minute mark are a large factor in naval forces, especially at low tier, and they just annihilate it. So it's not a surprise that this big beluga is going down in BR. It's a rough one to play. The 165 footer, the PC466 Kami, and also its Tech Tree equivalents, the PC451, are going down to 1.7. This isn't too much of a surprise. They do suffer from the same thing the outclass does, having one big gun and not really a lot to back it up. And because of that, I would say that, as I said, it's not a surprise, but it does have better characteristics than the outclass, just because it's a little bit faster, it can move around a little bit more. We'll have to see on this one, but I think it's a fine change. The Flower class as well is going down to 2.0. Can you imagine if it stayed at 2.3 and it ran into something like a Mitsuki? God damn, it would just be a bad day for the Flower class. So the Flower class is going down, once again, donk gun, and then it does actually have some backup compared to the Owl class, but it still gets bombed after 5 minutes. So you have a really fun 5 minutes where every so often you can donk a fool, but at the same time, you just get killed by a bomb. So it's it's a rough life as the flower class. I've spaded it, and I did have a lot more fun than I thought I would in it, because of the fact that, you know, you can actually you can just every so often just fire the gun and just something explodes in front of you in a wonderful hull destroyed fashion. But yeah, it just gets bombed and dies. The MPK 163, that's going down in BR to 2.0. That's kind of surprising to me. I thought that thing was doing okay. It seemed to be in a pretty decent position, like a lot of those mid-tier Soviet boats. You know, they have decent armament on them. The only thing they struggle with is speed, I suppose. So maybe I can see that is a reason to do that. The MBK 161, the 43 and the 44 are going up respectively to 3.3 and 3.7. That is also surprising to me. Like, I know these vehicles have armor, so maybe that's the issue, where a lot of people are not being able to pen the vehicles, but at the same time, their gun arcs are really odd and really weird. Even though they have a decent amount of armament, sometimes it's very hard to get the guns on the target because of the weird arcs, and also because of the fact that your machines are very low in the water. If you get any like waves or any heavy water or anything like that, it's very hard to keep stuff firing. So yeah, it's a bit weird to me that now these have gone up, especially the 161, which is higher than a bunch of destroyers now. But maybe there's something I'm missing. The Type M 1943, that's going down to 3.0. I'm also surprised by this. I thought it would do a little bit better than that, but c'est la vie. I'm guessing it's not doing very well. The Asheville as well. The Asheville, to me, it was always interesting looking at it because I think isn't it a 270,000 RP vehicle? So you can either research the whole of the destroyer line or an Asheville. And the Asheville is a vehicle which, if you compare it to the other 3.7 powerhouses or the other 4.0 powerhouses, you know, stuff like the Albatross, the Freccia now, and then also that Soviet thing with the automatic guns, it just paled in comparison. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good at all. So to see it go down is a positive move. Hopefully it'll mean that more people will play it, more people will grind it out instead of just going to destroyers and cruisers. We'll have to see. They're also changing all the 123s. The K, the BIS, and the Consomelets, all of them are going up to 2.3. Once again, not a surprise. All three of these machines are really fun to play. A lot of speed behind them as well, so you can just run around like a crazy person, and you are able to you're able to put out a lot of damage with the guns, because the guns are on the back. So what you could do is you could get close to the enemy, turn around, and then run away from the enemy, and it's very hard to range you as you go away. But if the enemy is coming towards you, you can just annihilate them because your shots will fall into exactly where they're distanced. So it ends up being a machine where you go close to the enemy, you turn, you run away, and you just keep doing that over and over again and do attacks on those machines, and you do a ton of damage to them, while also being able to cap points and run around the place. It seems like on this set of battle rating changes, speed is a big factor for a lot of machines. The BMO is going up to 3.0. I don't know what's caused this. I know the BMO is quite well armored, so it can be really annoying to deal with. It's also got that really nice 45 on it, which you should always control, or at least I always control, and it just does a ton of damage at a very good rate. And at the same time, it did get mines, so maybe that's changed its PR a little bit. I haven't seen too many people using mines, but maybe that's a factor when it comes to its 3.0 battle rating. We'll have to see. I think the reason its BR is going up is just because you can do so much damage with those, with the 45 and the extra ones. The Higgins 78 footer PT71, that's going up to 2.0, probably because once again of its speed, being able to move around the place very, very aggressively and very, very well. So that will generally mean that With the Higgins 78 footer, it'll be a bit more useful now. It might be part of a few more lineups, so you can give it a go. The Saeta P49 Force, this is the ATGM machine. I've been grinding this machine out for ages, and I just keep giving up because of the fact that it's just taking ages to get. But the machine looks really fun. It's also one of the only machines, or the only machine in the game, which actually has access to missiles in naval forces, and it is actually really interesting to see it, see them tracked, like when you have a plane up, and you can see like the missiles move around the place. I think it's really cool. And at the same time, it's one of those machines that can engage destroyers from distance. Seems like the best thing to do is to use the missiles to try and target ammunition and make it go pop. So to see it go up is not a surprise. It also has 2 of the fast-firing 40s, which are ridiculously good guns when it comes to dealing with battle boats or PT boats. It generally, the way I see it with a lot of those machines, which are quite high tier when they're PT boats or battle boats, is they end up being very, very, very high risk, high reward. So whoever gets their shots off first will cream the other person. That's basically how they work. And yeah, and then it's just down to the destroyers to try and aim at them at range. The 159 and the 35 are going up to 4.3. This doesn't surprise me on smaller maps. If you play the 159 or the 35, if you get within like 4 kilometers of an enemy, you can just decimate them. They just die. It's as simple as that. Nothing can be done when it comes to the 159 and the 35 if they open at you from that range. The way you beat something like one of those is you outrange it, especially in destroyers. And if you're in a PT boat or a battle boat, you can't really do that. So you just add its mercy. The 2 machines are very fun to play, very powerful, and I would definitely say they're worth giving a go if you've never had them. The PR-35 is one of my highest rated squadron vehicles, so if you do have some extra squadron RP, give it a go. Then you've also got the Chikugo. The Chikugo is going up to 3.7. So is the Ekazuchi. I don't have a lot of experience with these machines, and I'm very surprised they're going up in BR from just looking at them. They don't seem to have anything apart from a fast-firing gun on the front of it, and it's not even that fast-firing compared to a lot of machines. So to see these be high BR than some of the destroyers, I'm going to have to do more looking. I'm going to have to talk to a few more people, but that change to me doesn't make a lot of sense. To see something like as I said, a Matsuki be a lower BR than these 2 seems a bit odd, even with the Matsuki having a very slow fire rate on its guns. The 89-foot PT-810 is also going down to 3.3, so this will now become part of an amazing lineup. At 3.7, it was already part of an insane lineup, because if you had the event vehicle, the very fast PT boats, you had this, and then you had the LCS, the Destroyer of Worlds from the Naval Beta, but now it can do even more stuff, so hopefully it sees more play. Any PT boat for the Americans which has speed, 240mm on it, and torpedoes is going to excite me, because those are the machines that I personally use when it comes to events. I use that 3.0/3.3 lineup for the Americans, and I have a lot of fun with it. It's a really nice lineup, backed up by some pretty fun planes as well. So yeah, I think overall these BR changes, I don't like the fact that destroyers are now mingling way more with PT boats and battle boats. As I've said, I advocate for a gap between the 2. Even though this would annihilate some destroyers, I think it's better than annihilating all PT boats and battle boats. We'll have to see what happens with them. It just seems very odd. I can't even think about what I would do in a 2-3 against something like, I don't know, something like a Franz or something like a Turbine. It doesn't seem like something that would work very well in my favor. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Trigger Hippie, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hans, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.